titled this one. I titled the stream "Let's Vent." That's the Coors Light commercial, if you remember that. Let's vent, let's vent. That was like a campaign, and they'd be cracking beers. Yeah, let's vent. So, anyways, let's vent. It's been a few days able to digest the Palace game. It's been frustrating. First of all, let me welcome everybody in. Welcome to the stream. With me today is Jeer from Leeds United The View. Jeer Lynch on Instagram as well as Twitter. Follow Jeer for your daily Leeds United news. Jeer is also a UEFA B coach, so he's got some interesting tactical knowledge. That's why I reached out to him way back when over the summer. And Michael he was all over the place. He was one of the first Leeds United accounts I followed when I started becoming a fan. He is at Maynard M.
Yeah.
Maynard M on Twitter, aka Leeds Faithful. And I met him through we were doing kind of a 10-minute or so take on another channel, and always enjoyed his thoughts on everything Leeds United year one in the Premier League. Anyways, welcome everybody in. We're going to talk about Palace review. We're going to talk about Jesse Marsch. We're going to talk about kind of maybe some solutions to some of the issues that we see. But it's difficult at the moment to really kind of unpack this team. There's some warning signs. There's some signs for everybody to be concerned. But I'll digress. So, welcome, gentlemen. How are you doing? We'll start with Jeer.
Being attacked by my dog currently. Sorry about that.
Dog's welcome.
The dog is like, I want to get on camera. Can I get in this? I'm fine. I'm good. Yeah, I've managed to get over the weekend a little bit. Put my pragmatic head on to try and see what we could salvage from what was a disappointing game at the weekend. But apart from that, I'm good. I'm looking forward to chatting about this.
Excellent. Michael, how are we?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I'd be better if I had an espresso from that coffee bar you're at right now. That was good.
Well, they're shut down. They shut down at 4:00 because it pretty much rolled the sidewalks up around down here. But I would be, I love coffee. I drink it like you all day. Are you a coffee fan, Jeer?
I love coffee. I have a bone to pick with America. Why do your coffee houses all close early and not like that's not a thing?
I know, right?
Go
ahead.
No, you got.
There's a few. Well, Seattle, where you were, there's a ton. That's one of the meccas of coffee. I don't know why this one closes. It's just the downtown section of this city. Kind of everybody packs up and goes home.
Yeah.
Roll the sidewalks up.
Yeah, I think the baristas it would be in here, kind of twiddling their thumbs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love a late night coffee house kind of vibe.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know. Was it like that when you visited a couple weeks back?
Well, I was in Bellevue, so I know that's like just everyone leaves at a certain time and leaves Bellevue. But I went out a couple of days to go for a walk, and I thought 3 or 4 o'clock, I'll go into Starbucks, I'll get a frap, I'll stroll around. The weather's nice, and I got down and everything was like 3:30 and it was closed. So I went to the next Starbucks, closed. The next coffee house closed. I was like, what's going on? Why is everywhere closed? They're like, no, they're closed at 4 o'clock most days. I was like, okay.
Well, Alex treated me to an espresso at that very bar there a couple months back in July when I came through. We met up and he treated me to an espresso. It was quite tasty.
Yeah. This is one of the serious espresso bars where you kind of, it's, if they don't know you, like it's silence. And then you finally get your chance to order, and you get this order, and then there's a few minutes before you get the coffee, and then you get it, and it's like, wow, this is, I understand what it's all about. So
yeah,
there was a small boutique coffee house in Dublin years ago, and I was a rep at the time for a broadband company, and I was brought in by a manager of the store I was visiting to get a cup of coffee. And it was this real kind of hipstery, edgy kind of urban-y place. It was like brick wall, bits of plaster, bits without plaster, spray paint on parts of the wall, very unusual. And I ordered a cappuccino and I asked for sugar with it, and the guy just said to me, "No." And I went, "But I'd like sugar." And he went, "No, you don't need it." And I went, "No, I'd like it." He goes, "Okay." Makes the coffee, comes down, gives it to me. I took one. Before I went to take a sip of it, I said back to him, "Can I get 2 sugars with that?" And he just goes, "No, try it." So I took a sip of it, and he went, "Well," I went, "Yeah, it's fine." He goes, "Told you," and he just walked off. And that was the end of that. He goes, "You make a cup of coffee correctly, it shouldn't need anything else added to it." I was like, "All right, okay, you're an expert."
This place isn't that pretentious, although I've been to places like that. My wife had a lactose. I don't know if it was intolerance, but sensitivity. Well, I guess she still does. I should say had. And we ordered. She wanted an alternative milk at one of these places, and they were like, "No, everything gets served with 2% milk from the cow that's registered at this farm." It was very. It was very serious. It was like, "You don't have any other milks? Rice milk, coconut milk? No, only cow's milk here." But I'm a straight coffee man, espresso, Americanos, and drip coffee. But I think this is where we are. We're avoiding the footy at this point.
No, I mean, look, I think our team could have used an injection of coffee at halftime. That's the segue, right? Because really, I think we went to sleep.
Espresso shots at halftime. Yeah. We need to have a traveling barista.
Can we get sponsored by 5 Hour Energy from now on? Can we just get one shot at that at halftime? You'd be good for the rest of the week.
Yeah. So let's get stuck in, as they say. And what were your thoughts on Palace? I'll leave it there. What were your thoughts on the Palace game, Michael?
Yeah. It was a bloody awful watch. The first half, I think, not even the first half. The first half of the first half went really, really well. Even still, I felt that we were getting in positions to be able to fashion chances, and it's a different game if Bamford puts that one away. If he was on form, if he was sort of not still making a comeback from injury, he's still, I think, carrying something. He's certainly not sharp yet, and I don't think we can really blame him for that. And he's the kind of striker that sometimes needs 3 or 4 chances like that before he buries one anyway. And we used to create that, and unfortunately, we're not anymore. So it's a totally different game if that one goes away, I think. But we let them back into it with just sort of more stupidity at the back. Cooper fouling when he shouldn't have, and then just poorly defending the set piece, and it just changed the dynamic of the game. But then so too did Vieira's changes, which he even talked about afterwards, that he went to a 4-4-2, and we just had nothing to counter it with. I had got the sense from previous matches that Jesse was a manager that didn't shy away from tinkering with formations and changing things up. He didn't really seem to do the right changes. Certainly we changed personnel, but it didn't really seem to change the way we were playing at all. And I was pretty disappointed with the response from our team, both tactically and through the player, like how the players were actually performing after halftime. And honestly, it was a match that we deserved to lose. It was quite disappointing.
They were there to be had, it seemed like, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they were there for the taking. And so whenever you feel like you left points on the table, that's the most disappointing part. Jer, what did you think of Crystal Palace?
Yeah, I agree with Michael. It's so transparent. It's hard not to agree with everybody on this because everyone's saying the same things, and that's the disappointing thing for me. Is there's no tactical masterclass here. There's no genius at play. It's just basic stuff. I mean, Jesse's talked several times this year about being adaptive and being proactive with changes, and he even complimented himself at one point earlier on the season. I think it was before the Brighton game or the Southampton game. Sorry, he's saying he was proactive about his substitutions and he knew he could change a game if he was proactive. And then we saw against them that he wasn't proactive, and it cost us then. And I don't think he was proactive on Saturday. For me, 50 minutes into that game, Bamford was done. He was out on his feet. His ball wasn't sticking anymore. He wasn't making runs in behind anymore. There was nothing up front. And when you look at the back line trying to play out from the back and there's no movement up front, that's a tough gig for defenders to get out with. And Jack Harrison as well went missing about 20 minutes into the game. Just vanished completely, and we didn't see him again. And there's just two sides to kind of this, both those players and the Jack Harrison, and I suppose Aronson a bit in the second half. If you've got players that can make an impact in a game, you've got to get the ball to them. You have to get the ball to them. You've got to play to their strengths. And we just started lumping the ball out of the back from the second half. Every time we got the ball at the back, it was panic, long ball down the wing, no one running onto it. Concede possession, have to sit back and soak up more pressure from Palace, get the ball back, hump it down the line again, concede possession again. And it was just, I kind of wrote it down two ways. I made some notes on Sunday, and one was the first 25 minutes had me out of my seat at 3 or 4 different occasions where I was really excited about what I was seeing. I thought the pressing, particularly from Bamford and Aronson and Rodrigo, at one point, I think I put a tweet out early in the game where I said Bamford and Rodrigo were practically playing as 2 9s. They were right up beside each other, and Aronson and Harrison were tucked in and pushed on, and Palace couldn't get out. Half an hour in, Rodrigo's playing in midfield. Bamford's on his own up front, and Harrison and Aronson just dropped completely out of the back line, and the press stopped completely. We saw a couple weeks ago about the pressing numbers, the fitness levels at Leeds, and they're saying they're higher than they were under Bielsa, but yet we can't run for longer than we did under Bielsa, which really kind of confused me whether we're telling the truth here with our numbers or not. But what I will say, and again, trying to be balanced with it, is I don't know how often you can blame Jesse Marsch for individual errors by players. Brentford was 100% a Diego Llorente, and excuse my French, shit show. Yeah. He absolutely fell apart in that game and cost us what I think would have been 3 points. We were very good in that game. I think I said it to Michael earlier on Twitter. I said, like, the Brentford game, I didn't finish the Brentford game going, I'm angry about that or I'm disappointed about that. I finished the game going, only for Llorente we win that game comfortably. We were the better team, and we played great football. And even though we lost and conceded 5 goals, I actually enjoyed watching most of that game. The game against Palace was very different. I just thought there was no creativity, and again, it comes down then to, is it Jesse Marsch's fault we don't get the result there? And you go, well, no, Liam Cooper makes a stupid decision out left, and unfortunately he has it in his locker. I'd like to get on my soapbox and say something about Liam Cooper and his local fanboy union that he has. Cooper makes a mistake, and as far as I can see from the free kick as well, it's also Cooper's man who gets on the end of the ball. So you could say there's a double mistake from Cooper here. And then the second half, I know there are, and I always say this, you never blame the last player on a goal. You should look back 2 or 3 phases and see, well, how many chances did you have to stop this move from developing? So there's loads. There's plenty on the left-hand side where we could have stopped it. But when he comes inside, your job as your centre half is to make yourself big and to jockey or push the player across the box as far as you can and out of danger.
Yep.
One little drop of the shoulder and Cooper's on his head. He's on his back, overcommits, and then it's a nice finish from the edge of the box, but he could have walked it in at that stage. He could have walked into the box. There was nobody to stop him. And that's 2. Last week we were all, sorry, Alex, can I hop my soapbox for 2 seconds, or can we do this later on? This is my vent.
Go for it.
Last week, somebody put a post up on Twitter, on Facebook, and it went all around the Leeds houses. But put some respect on Liam Cooper's name. Right? I think everyone saw that post. And then there's a lovely song that was developed for Liam Cooper that is also now doing the rounds with, cost us 700,000, has played next amount of games for Leeds, captained us to promotion, should be respected. I just want to be really clear on this. You can respect somebody and still think they're causing you problems now. I respect everything Liam Cooper has done for Leeds. He will go down in the history books as the captain that got Leeds back in the Premier League. He has had some incredible moments for Leeds. That doesn't mean he gets to get away scot-free when he does something stupid that costs Leeds points. Yeah. If Llorente had done that, there would be a parade outside Ellen Road to ship him back to Spain because he's Spanish and he's not from Leeds. So therefore, you're not allowed to do. Any other players don't get the level of free passes that Liam Cooper gets with a certain group of vocal Leeds fans. And I'm probably alienating some of my own audience if I'm saying this as well. But I can respect what Liam Cooper has done for Leeds. Do I think he's good enough for Leeds in the Premier League right now? No, I don't. Same reason why John Sheridan isn't still playing for Leeds and Ian Snowden's not popping around either. They had their day, they did their thing, and they moved on. Liam Cooper is a leader. He clearly has a big influence in the dressing room, and I like that about him. But he's not the best defender we have in the team, and we need better defenders. And if everybody was fit and everyone was available, I don't think he gets in the starting 11. I think he's probably got a player ahead of him as well. I think you bring Charlie Krauser back on loan. He goes ahead of Cooper. You bring Stroke in centre half, and you go with Stroke and Cock. Or you do what Leeds should have done, and I said this before the season even kicked off. Buy a Premier League centre back. Connor Cody was sitting there waiting to be picked up, and that was a loss. That's a player you could have gone after who was a calm, experienced Premier League head that would have kept us calm. Liam Cooper will have massive moments this year where he does great things, and I'll cheer for him. And he'll have moments this year where he does stupid things. And his first game back, we could have conceded a penalty only for an offside decision. He catches a guy by his jersey. Just inexcusable things that you can't do. And on Sunday, he had plenty of opportunity to get rid of the ball in the first half, and he didn't. He faffed about on it, tried to do a Cruyff turn. And again, as a former manager and a coach, I never want to see a centre half doing a Cruyff turn anywhere on the pitch because it's not your skill set. Just get rid of the ball, worry about it. If I have a centre half getting rid of the ball, turn around to me. If I give out to them, they'll turn around, they'll say, where's the ball? Up there. Where is it? Not in our goal. Job done. Simple as that. My job is to stop the ball from going in the net. So I think there were individual errors. Long rant there, sorry. But there were individual errors at the weekend. Again, there were individual errors against Brentford that cost us. And I don't know how often you can blame a manager when a player can't get it right. But hey, if the manager was Liam Cooper, maybe he'd get away with it. There we go. Pen down.
Yeah, interesting. I agree with it with what you said there. I mean, Cooper is somebody that I think you want on the team. I don't think he's somebody that you want to be starting 3 years in from a promotion side that he kind of walks right into because Llorente is so out of form. I remember in one of the first streams we did, you got to know, the thing about Llorente is you got to know when to put your boot through it. And he doesn't seem to understand that. He wants to play out and get a little triangle going, and he costs some opportunities. So when Cooper's doing something like that, Cooper's a guy where you expect he's just going to get it the heck out. He's going to send it down the pitch. When Cooper's doing stuff like that, it's really disappointing, and this kind of brings me to my thought process, which is the squad construction or roster construction. I don't know if that's, we use roster. Michael and I use roster when we're saying baseball, but I mean, I'm looking at this. I'm looking at the squad. It needs a true blue left back, and so we can put Struijk back at center back. That's the real problem, and I think Digler here makes an interesting point, and I think this is where Jesse's at. I think Jesse, because Jesse was in a press conference recently, said, if you take the outlier of the Brentford game out, we're not conceding too many goals. He wants, and again, something that he said early that I used in the podcast was he wants us to be ruthless in front of goal. So that 20-minute spurt where we should have scored 2 or 3, we wound up with 1. He wants the games to be kind of put away there, as it was in the Southampton game, where we kind of got 2 goals and we were on top, even though we wound up conceding. We came back at Chelsea and saw that game out. So I think Jesse, reading the tea leaves, so to speak, is actually more concerned about the front line as he is in the back line. But I think the back line is always going to be leaking goals. We have to close up shop at some point. I really do believe in clean sheets and, the ability to, maybe we can't concede here. You know what I mean? The threat and the scare of always conceding a goal is a problem. So I'm like, I think all of us really concerned about the back line.
I mean, if you don't concede goals, you don't lose games. It's that simple.
Yeah.
If you score more than your opposition score, you don't lose games. Look at the other direction as well. And like Jesse Marsh has talked about these spurts and scoring in these spurts. But what if you don't? Like, that's the problem. Like, and Bielsa got a huge amount of stick for not having a plan B last year. And if it's not working, do you have a plan B to get past it because it didn't work on Sunday?
And the two strikers, they're hot and cold. The Rodrigo and Bamford are guys that, I mean, we know that there's goals in Bamford. We've seen them. We think he's pretty. I know that he's pretty close. I know he does a lot of stuff off the ball, and his movement's elite. But he hasn't scored since December 2021, almost a year. Jesse's never seen him score a goal.
No,
I think based on, again, his comments, he says he's match fit, but now he's not sharp. Based on some of those things, I don't know if we'll. I think he's lost trust with Bamford. I think he's going to lose trust with Bamford. I think he wants to play. I said who's hot, and one of these two, Yanto or Jaffe, is going to continue to come in.
Yeah,
but
I think it's more Jaffe though. I don't think it is.
Yeah, I do feel. I love Jaffe.
It was strange at the weekend. You need a goal. Why not bring on your Italian international striker who you now think is Premier League ready? Why not bring him into the game? But like, if Bamford's not fit, he doesn't start. He doesn't start the game. And for me, Rodrigo's not a 10. He's never played well in the 10. Stop playing him in the 10. It hasn't worked for any manager. He either starts in the number 9 or he doesn't start at all. That's where my head is at with this. So you either go with Rodrigo in the 9 where he was scoring goals at the start of the season. You go back to that. I don't know why we didn't revert back to the team we had pretty much the first game of the season. And then you bring Bamford in for half an hour to keep it fresh, and it changes the game up a little bit. And he's got enough energy in his legs for 30 minutes, can make an impact. But if he's not fit, you're putting a huge amount of responsibility on a player who's not sharp. And if the manager is admitting that he doesn't think he's sharp, he should be in the under 21 team playing as many games as he can to get sharp. And you start with Rodrigo or you play Nyanto. And for me, it's your number 9's options are Bamford or Rodrigo. That's it. Your number 10 options are Nyanto, Click, or Gelhardt. That's the 3 and the 10. That's it. But, we left ourselves short of a striker this summer. Left ourselves short of a left back, which is now having a knock-on effect of a little bit short of a centre back. So, recruitment's let us down again.
And the thing, too, for me is that although Rodrigo, I do agree that he's more of a 9. It certainly has shown that for us because he's never really convinced as a 10. But he's also a very different profile of 9 from Bamford. Like, he's not like a line leading 9, maybe more of a false 9. He doesn't lead the line the same way that Bamford does. And so that's the profile that we're missing. That's why we need to go and get another 9 that is more in the mold of Bamford, that can do that line leading stuff, that can go and physically mix it up with the defenders, that can, that has the ability to drop deep if necessary, but also can play off the shoulder. I think that's really what we're missing, and I mean I think that's what they wanted to get with Charlotte de Ketelara, for example, who could do that. And I think even they envision, although this isn't really his main role, I think they envision Cody Hakpo as someone who could do that. Now, obviously, we didn't get CDK. We're not. Let's just be clear. We're not going to get Cody Hakpo either. Not now. Even if we had a chance before, it's definitely not happening now. But they need to look at that kind of a profile, I guess. Again, I'm not sure that Hakpo actually is a 9, but they seem to think that he is and can play there. So maybe there's something to that. I did see recently there was a comparison of Hakpo to Cristiano Ronaldo in terms of profile. So being able to play both of those roles. So maybe that is something. I'm not saying that he's that level of elite talent, I suppose. Spit it, as I have to acknowledge that. But but in terms of profile, I mean, I think that's sort of what the comparison was, and I think that's certainly possible. But yes, I want to go back to your comments on Cooper if I can. I still think there's value of having Cooper around. The leadership aspects and things like that are certainly there. And, I think he is still really good at bringing the ball out of defense. He shows a lot of sort of wisdom in that regard, but yeah, his defending is declining. And I think that the physical nature of the job is now getting beyond him. He's had a lot of injuries piling up more and more. I think he's probably lost some, not that he was never really pacey to begin with, but it feels like he's lost a step. And that's why we see so much more shirt pulling and that sort of thing going on and finding him out of positions. And what you said as well is that a drop of the shoulder, and he's diving in, and he's on his backside trying to stop the shot, and people are getting by him, and we saw that, obviously against Crystal Palace. So for me, the two center back, the best center back pairing we have, and I said this, to be fair, I think I said this in preseason even, would be Koch and Strauch, which is why I advocated so heavily, even more so than getting a striker, why I said we need a left back, because I think the whole thing gets destabilized at the back without that one. And again, Strauch is doing really well at left back, but it leaves us shy at center half. So that's the issue for me, is that the back line as a unit isn't working well right now. When we have to put Diego Llorente in at left-sided center back, it doesn't work. It never has. It never will. It didn't work at his last club either. The fans there were like, yeah, he's okay if you play him as a right-sided center half or in a 3, but if you play him at the left, it's a disaster. He just can't get his head around the positioning. And we see that over and over again. So yeah, we definitely, again, sold ourselves short by not bringing in the correct players that we need to fill out this squad. Whereas, last season, our worst area, the area where we were the most depleted and most efficient, was in central midfield. That is now our strongest area. And unfortunately, it's the two opposite ends of the pitch now where we're short. So we're not quite getting the formula right. You hope that, as we continue to build, that's something that they will address. But honestly, the transfer strategy is not leaving me with a lot of confidence in this particular management team's ability to build the squad that we need.
This thing, we said this before. I'm pretty sure we've talked about this before, where we said, if the thought process in the recruitment is, I think we'll be okay there at least until Christmas, then you should go and buy somebody now, because chances are you won't be. So why leave yourself in a position where you can replicate mistakes of the past? We saw it last year with the midfield situation. Why do it again? We all talked about it. Every single YouTube channel I've watched, from LS11 to Square Ball to Leeds Lounge to all of these different things, they all said the same thing. Don't make the same mistake as last season. Everyone could see it. What did we do? Made the exact same mistake as last season, left ourselves short in a position where, unfortunately, Strauch has been excellent at left back, to the point where I don't think we need a left back. I think we need a centre back. That's where my head has gone now. I think he's doing great there, and his stats and his numbers for the season back up. He's one of the best left backs in the country currently. For a guy that's not a left back, I mean, against Brighton, he's nutmegging players. He's a quality young player who's only going to get better in future Holland international as well. But why leave yourself with that problem in the first place? And and I don't want to. I've gone in really heavy on. I've done a Liam Cooper on Liam Cooper. I've gone in 2-footed. I've left the leg in. I've gone a bit high. There's still huge aspects of his game that I like. He's got a wand of a left foot. His diagonal crosses across a park to open up. Last year was the thing of beauty to watch him doing that. And in a 3, I think he's probably perfect. And I agree with you. I think Llorente is probably good in a 3. The question, actually, I've got a question to you guys, is: we played a 3 against Aston Villa and looked pretty okay with it, with 10 men. What's your thought on us playing a 3 going forward? I don't have an issue with going 3 to back and using it. We play so narrow anyway. Do we need wingers? We just play wide fullbacks anyway.
Yeah, that's a good thought. So that brings me to my next question. What do you think Jesse Marsch's tactics? What do you think of his tactics? We kind of went over the players and where we're short there, but what do you think of his tactics? And now we're 8 games into his system, full summer. What do you think of that? Does he need to, I got asked a lot, is he a one-trick pony? I'm starting to think that. I'm starting to think that he might be. There seems to be a lack of tactics in possession. There seems to be a very easy couple of ways to beat Leeds. I mean, we looked at the low block a couple weeks. We looked at this was kind of bypassing the press. Jesse called them chip balls in. They were kind of like these switch balls in. The one that got the second goal I thought was really great. A really beautiful play. As I tried to divorce myself from the moment, I'm like, that's really good. It went over to, I believe, their fullback, into Zaha on the wing. the defense collapsed on Saha. I think he did a back heel to Eze. Eze did his man,
through,
and it's a goal. So what do you think of Marsh's tactics? And then I think we're going to go into the future of Jesse Marsh too. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, let me address Jared's question just first. I think a back three might be a good idea. With wing backs or something. I mean, Harrison can do that job. Difficult to say who we might put on the right there, but perhaps Aronson could do a job there because of his energy levels and his pressing abilities and such. But we have difficulties down the right side as well, which are not being addressed by anyone that we've put there so far. And it could just be with Ayling. Who knows? He's getting on. We've all kind of thought that maybe he should be moving into a center back role as well. He still, I think he still runs with the ball fairly well. He still progresses the ball pretty well, but he's not the Ayling of old, so to speak. So onto your question, Alex. So when I was looking at I think I sent it to you both. There was a chart that had sort of been doing the rounds where it was from Jesse Marsh, or from a presentation that Jesse Marsh had given about tactics, and they were talking about a lot about counter pressing, and it even used the term checking.
Was it real?
Yeah.
That red one, the one that was,
as far as I'm aware, it is. Yeah.
It really did look like a children's menu of a restaurant that I go to. It looked like a kid's menu.
It did.
I thought that was an elaborate meme.
No, I think it's real.
I assumed it came with crayons.
It was from RB, like back at, I think it was Salzburg maybe even, but no, I think it was real. But in any event, the information on it is absolutely what he talks about. So and the things that he's talked about in presentations before, and even the things that he's talked about when he discusses tactics, with the media or whatever. This idea, the fact that counter pressing is like the main tactical idea that is transmitted through the style that he wants to play. And in that particular sheet, that info sheet, it talked about counter pressing as forechecking. And anyone who knows hockey, and you might know this, Alex, certainly being a North American like me, there you go. It talks about forechecking, and forechecking is essentially counter pressing. It's the term that's used for counter pressing in hockey. So it's when you activate your forward line, and you are, because hockey is a very aggressive game that's really based around body checking, right? Hitting people. It's when your forward line goes through and starts body checking people in the other team's defensive zone. So you're going on an offensive check to try to win the puck in the offensive zone, so that you have a quick turnaround to be able to get the puck on the net and create as much chaos as possible. And for me, this is really bringing hockey, the ideas of hockey, into football. So I don't know what we want to call that, hockey or hawker or whatever it is.
Worse things on Sunday.
But that's really what it is. So is it a one trick? I mean, the question is it a one trick thing? Yeah. It certainly seems to be, to me, to be a one trick thing, because I mean, it says here we rarely discuss ball possession.
Yeah, mad.
No kidding.
It's crazy that's on this.
No kidding. I mean, if in fact this is something that he did, and that's what he said. But I mean, even if that's not the case, it's clear that we rarely discuss ball possession, because the whole point is just get the ball, sort of out, between the lines, in front of the goal as quickly as possible, and drive as many people as possible at the net, and hope that the chaos that you bring is what fashions the chances for you. Essentially creating almost like a central overload all at once. So the problem is that as soon as any team that we come up against that is good defensively on the ball, we find it difficult then to actually break them down and get the ball back off of them. If they play through that initial press to sort of win the ball back, the counter press, win the ball back narrowly, if we're not able to do that, they blow by us. And what we're seeing is these long direct passes. We're seeing the diagonals that you mentioned, right? The switch balls. Once we're even those sort of clip balls over the top, things that just sort of bypass, go over, around, or through that press. As soon as that happens, we have too many players in the wrong place, and we're getting played through. And that's the difficulty with this. I understand the philosophy behind it. It certainly works in hockey, but it works in hockey, I think, because you're already playing on a rink that is long and very narrow. It's a tight space already. And hockey is a much faster game as well, obviously, because they're on skates. Everyone, like, the reason why hockey players only come on for a minute and a half a shift is because they literally sprint on skates the entire time, right? They're skating as fast as possible, and they're physical with each other, and they're banging into each other. So they get exhausted very quickly. And that's because it's played in a very tight space. Football, we're sort of, with this system, we're artificially creating a tight space. But the problem is that if the team is able to get out of that, we've left a whole lot of open space behind us or over to one side. And that's how we're getting exposed, I think. So there are certainly merits to that kind of a system, and I think it can work, but we're seeing very clearly where it doesn't work, and I think it's being found out.
Huh. Well, yeah, it's interesting that obviously it's a German model, Red Bull model. And the awkwardness by which we have the ball is concerning, because I felt like in Marcelo's system, there was obviously a plan with the ball. We wanted the ball. It was still difficult to break teams down or sometimes get that final ball. We expressed ourselves on the wings, but it was still difficult to get that goal, that cross in the final goal, the final result to finish, especially when you don't have as much quality as other teams do in the Premier League. I don't want to say that there's not merit to this system. I also don't. It's really us and Southampton that are running it. The team now is so set up for this Red Bull counterattacking system. If we were to change the system, I almost think that there would be worse results for a while, because we're not set up for the wing. We're not set up to be an in possession kind of football team anymore. Yeah, Jir, what do you think about the tactics so far? 8 games in.
You've just made a really good point there as well. That's just triggered something in my head. And again, Michael's points as well. I'm just picking up bits that you're saying, and I'm like, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. That's a really good point. Working backwards. Here's the thing about the Southampton style, and I've enjoyed listening to people discussing Southampton. I like Southampton as a club. I follow their academy underage. I think as a coach. Southampton is a great model, and they have a great online presence for picking up drills that you can do with underage players and youth development. They've got a smashing underage system there, and credit to them. But because of that, I tend to follow all of Southampton's social media channels. So I see a lot of bits and pieces that people are talking about with them. And it was very interesting at start of last season, Southampton were, Hasenhüttl was a fantastic manager. They were doing the right things. They were playing great football. Everything was great. Everything was fantastic with Southampton. And then it stopped being great. And they started losing a huge amount of matches. I think they only won one of their last 12 games or something like that, and nearly got dragged into the relegation issue. And then all over preseason, the conversation was, will Hasenhüttl stay at Southampton? Should he stay? Should they get somebody else? And then they started the season really well. And there was no pressure on him. He was fine. He's doing great. They're back to themselves. And if you look over the entire time that he's been there, they have had matches where they've been absolutely thumped by teams. Like Man City put 9 past them.
Yeah.
And then you've games where they've beaten teams they shouldn't beat, and you've this inconsistency, and it's that hectic, chaotic model that you both mentioned. So it works. It does work.
Yeah.
But it only works if you take the whole 30-game season and go, well, if we score in clusters during 90 minutes, that's how we win games in this league. We win them in clusters. We win a couple of games and we lose a few, win a few, lose a few, and you've got to be okay with that. Yeah. The issue for me is that we're losing games against the teams that we're likely to be down the bottom half of the table with, and not lose against the teams that you would expect to lose against. So, the next 4 games are Arsenal and Liverpool. I expect nothing from those games, and if we lose, I won't be disappointed because I expect nothing from them. Fulham and Leicester, that's a different conversation. Same with Brentford, same with Southampton. Like, they're teams you should be beating. So, Leeds need to keep looking at these different models. Like, there's a Leicester model for transfers, and that's shown this season that that's breakable, and that's broken now. It hasn't worked. When you run out of a player that you can sell for big money, what do you do then? Or when, trying to build your team to push on, if the players you bring in don't work. And you get Southampton model, the Red Bull model, for a playing style, and there is merit to it. But the merit only goes as far as the ability of the players. And when the players get to a certain age or a certain level, I had this conversation with one of the guys on my YouTube channel, and I think one of the comments he made to me was, you're talking at both sides of your mouth. He thought I was criticizing Bielsa and wanted Bielsa out and was back in March, and I was saying, no, the manager system is fine and it works as long as the players are capable of playing that system, until the point where they're no longer capable of playing that system. If the least players are capable of playing Marsh's high pressing system for 25 minutes of a game, that's fine, but you need to win in the game 2 or 3-0 by 25 minutes. Otherwise, it's not good enough, and it's not going to work a long time. Do I think it has merit? I do. There are moments in games where I think we look like a proper top team. Yeah. I think we've looked as good as Man City with pressing at times. I think we've looked as good as Liverpool from last year when we've winning possession and quick breaks in the opposition half and winning the ball back in the final third. I think in the first half of the game, we had won 8 balls back in the final third of the pitch versus Crystal Palace winning it once. And like, that's huge. Yeah. But then you've got to have better players. That's the problem. The system breaks down when the players are not good enough. A better striker takes Bamford's chance. First time. Takes it. Go. That's it. Game over. 2-0 down. Game over. Leeds tails are up. Aronson was having the 25 minutes of his absolute life in that game. I got what they called him. Is it Medford Messi they call him? Medford?
Yeah. It's from Medford, New Jersey, yeah.
100% got it. When I saw him coming off the wing with that goal, I was like, that's goal of the season if he scores that. Yeah. Incredible run. And he looked dangerous. Yeah. But then they get tired. And that's the problem. And that's when the system loses its merits. If the players are not capable of playing your system, and this is a conversation that me and my brother have all the time about football. If you're going to play a certain system, this is the way you should work it. You either buy the players to suit this system who can play that system, or you change the system to suit the players that you have. Yeah. Right now, we've got a split down the middle. We've got a couple of players that have come in that can play the system. I have no questions that Tyler Adams can run for 90 minutes at a high level. No issue at all. He's an athlete. You can see it. Aronson, maybe to a lesser degree, there's more expected of him as a winger or as a 10. But then you've got a whole list of players I was writing down as we were talking. Click 32, Robles 32, Ayling 31, Cooper 31, Forshaw 31, Rodrigo 31. You know, these players are not going to be able to go for 90 minutes. They're not going to keep this level up. And that's a real problem. And it doesn't matter how much you believe in the manager or the manager's style. If the players can't play the system, you change the system to fit the players. And right now, we need to look at that. And that's why I think if we played 3 at the back next week, I think it would be a smart move, because you're playing against Arsenal anyway. Yeah. It could be without a few players. There's a possibility that Gabriel Jesus will miss it. Fingers crossed. He does. But I think if you go 3 at the back, I think it's safer. I think you can bring Llorente in then. You can even bring Struijk in on the left. You can play Koch on the right. You can put Cooper in the middle. We're done. That's perfect. You know, we don't have Firpo, but you might have Arson.
What's the formation? 3 what?
3-5-2 or 3-4-1-2. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just took your wingers in as extra midfielders and you put your 10 in behind your 9 again, or you can push him on and go more, what they used to call it, Christmas tree, like that.
Yeah.
Does Jesse have that in him?
I hope so.
The
big question for me with Jesse is going to be, how long does he stick with this group of players before he starts changing things? And Alex, you made this point as well about the players that are out there at the moment. At what point will they stop? If they keep not doing the job for him, at what point does he run out of patience with them? You know, I mean, he's been pretty loyal to the same group of 12 players pretty much. If they lose again, forget Arsenal. Somebody said that we should win our next 4 games. I think that's an outrageous statement and not based on any realistic actual realities. But if you ignore that one, if we don't come out of Fulham and Leicester with at least 4 points from those 2 games, there will be serious questions to be asked around the team. And then why are we not pulling the plug on the big talents that we've got that are there? I saw somebody else mention Sonny Perkins in the chat there. Sonny Perkins isn't even playing as a striker for the under-21s anymore. He's playing in midfield right now in with Sam Greenwood, or just in front of Sam Greenwood, and doing really, really well in there. But he's a striker and he can score goals. And he played in Europa League with West Ham last season. He's already got his Premier League debuts. Yeah. Bring him in. Or you put Gelhardt in and say, yeah, look, Gelhardt's not ready yet. Yeah, but he needs games. He's going to need 3 or 4 games. And if you're willing to give a rusty Pat Bam for 3 or 4 games to get a goal, I'd rather go with the energy. I'd rather go with the player that can actually keep pressing for that amount of time and then take him off. It's a strange one. The body checking, the hockey thing. Sorry, just to go back in the loop.
Yeah.
I really want to see that picture again, because it's the matchstick men that do it for me, that have that, you know, that level of, I should take this serious, you know, the guy's waving a flag, you know. there is issues with it. I have no issue with hockey or rugby, or there's lots of different sports that can get, you can take elements from and piece together. And, set play coaches came out of American sports as well. Like they exist in soccer now. They came out of American born sports and rugby as well. But the problem with body checking is you run up a hell of a lot of free kicks in soccer doing that. And I don't know if you've noticed, but we're running up a hell of a lot of free kicks against us. Niggly, little, pointless, and unnecessary fouls where we're literally body checking people, which you can't do in soccer. You can't do it. And the other advantage of that system in hockey is hockey has walls. So you can't just run off the sideline and run around the player. You run into a wall, so you can kind of use the wall as an invisible player nearly. I can pin you in here and you can't get past me. But football, I just put the ball down the line and run off the pitch and run around you, and I'm in. Or you go for a big long ball over the top. As the Diags that caught us for Eze's run inside. That ball goes over the top. If you're adapting a hockey system, it's easy. The player can't run anywhere. He's got a wall, so you can only run along the edge of the wall. With soccer, he just runs wider and gets around it, and it breaks down. So if you're going to adapt things from other sports, they've got to be set in reality. They've got to actually work when you bring the restrictions of the pitches into and the grounds into their thought process with this. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work when you've got wide open space to run into. The other thing about the counter pressing thing as well is, and the not having possession. A mind-boggling statement to say that we don't talk about possession. I'm a coach that's, when I'm involved with a new club, it's let's get a basis of not conceding goals and not losing first. Let's get that in us, and then I tend to draw an awful lot of games with clubs that I'm with in the first 6 to 8 weeks that I'm there at the start of the season. I draw a huge amount of games. I got referred to as a draw merchant at one point, and then you start picking up wins and you start adding in the bits. Now we're safe. We all know the defensive shape. We all know how solid we are. Cool. Now we can start adding in the little bits of extra attacking plays we have to move in and pushing the block up the pitch. And that's the thing. But with the idea of having possession for large amounts is there's two trains of thought in this. One is possession for possession's sake, which I hate. I don't think most people will lateral passing or sideways passing as referred to. But the other version of it is possession with purpose. So you keep the ball in order to wait for these triggers, these moments where you drag a player out of position, and you maintain the position. So if I go right winger to number 9, back to 10, back to right winger, back to 9, back to 10. They just keep moving left and right slightly. There's only so often in 90 minutes where the defenders are going to make that run with that player. And at some point during that game, they switch off or they don't make the run. And that's your trigger. That's when the gap opens up, and that's when you're ruthless and you go for the juggler and you score. That's possession with purpose. It means you have a huge amount of the ball. But for a top-tier manager to make a comment like, we don't talk about possession, you absolutely should talk about possession every week. How much possession did we have? Did we control the game? Because if you haven't got the ball, you're not controlling the game. And we've seen that too often with Leeds where it's fallen apart. I think Jesse's got enough wherewithal about him to start to adapt this. We saw it last year when we got caught out wide. He started to bring width into the team. I think he's going to have to start looking at that again. But I hope, and I think he does have the mental intelligence here to fix this.
Well, he's a big, I call him win one for the Gipper. He's got, he can get an emotional speech out of them and get them playing with emotion. Obviously, tactically, it's still a question mark. 2 from 5 is relegation form. So let's move the chessboard further and say, okay, we get 3 from the next 4. We get 2 from the next 4. We get 1 from the next 4. And Jesse's job is, I said he sacks himself. And I said that about Marcelo Bielsa last year. The form of the team was so bad. We were going to, look, he's a legend. That's a still heated debate question, but I had a teacher in high school that would always say, don't put your academic career in my hands. Don't make me force you. I don't want to give you an F. You don't want to get an F. You do these things. You know what I mean? So if Jesse or Leeds, the team gets 3 points, 2 points, 1 point, he's no longer in control of his destiny. You know what I mean? There's cause there for a change. And so who would come in? Again, knowing the squad now, who would come in? And I don't, to me, I mean, we do Red Bull better, which is like, Ralph Ragnick. Do we call him? Do we get the mastermind behind Red Bull, or do
Could you
we
imagine
close
how
up?
that would go down after Bielsa was replaced with an American soccer coach, and he was then replaced with an ex-Man United manager? Could you imagine?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Explosion.
I don't know. Do we double down on Red Bull ball?
Well, here's a
Or to
question
me,
for you.
the other option is close up shop, counterattacking, second Big Sam, Sean Dyche, who we were making fun of. We were
No.
making fun of these guys
No, we got
2
to be
years
better than that.
ago. Is it that? Because I just don't see, and maybe there's another way I'm not seeing.
Yeah, there's a few
go
outs.
ahead.
I have a question for you, though. I don't want to keep jumping in, but I've got a question for you. Do you believe that Jesse Marsh is stubborn or set in his ways? Because that will dictate what happens.
Well, no, I don't. Not to the degree. I believe he believes in his system, and he has a few, I guess, instilled beliefs. And he's not as stubborn as Marcelo Bielsa, who was very set in his ways. So yeah, that's my answer. But at the same, I also want to caveat that with, this is a big time learning experience for him. Last year was, but this year will even more so be, because there's some tricks up these managers' sleeve. They've seen it. This is it's survival of the fittest. It's the best league in the world. Every manager and a lot of the players understand how to play in multiple systems. So
Yeah, so for me, I mean, like talking generally, not necessarily about Jesse in particular, about the Red Bull system. I think it's got certain advantages to it. I think there's certain things that aren't so great about it, but you can say that about any system. For me, in terms of manager, you have to have a manager who may be dedicated to a certain system, but also has the ability, the wherewithal, whatever, to be able to change that. And that's what we're talking. When people talk about plan B, like, what are we talking about? What we're talking about is to have sort of the tactical awareness and the flexibility and the know-how to be able to change your system and to be able to coach the players into understanding the change of system. And so if you're coming to the table as a manager with one system and none of your own unique individual tactical ideas, you're going to have a problem, because as soon as you get found out, you're done. That's it. It's just downhill from there. So, it's certainly a different situation, I think, from Bielsa. I mean, Bielsa developed his own systems, and yes, he was absolutely wedded to them. He was committed to them, with absolute certainty. Even when the players went to him and said, "Can we please change this?" He said, "Nope, that's not going to happen. This is the way it is." And we knew that about Bielsa right from the get-go. That was part of the allure. That was actually the reason for the success to begin with. It had a shelf life. When that was done, it was done. With Marsh, I don't necessarily think he's stubborn. I just don't think he knows any other way. I think the system that he's got is the one that he knows, and I'm not convinced that he knows any others.
There was a statement that Radrizzani made when Phil Hay and David Ornstein interviewed him at the start of the season, where he said, with Bielsa, we got to a point where, and Bielsa had said this himself, Bielsa said, my structure has 4 years of effect. And at the end of 4 years, you have a decision to make. You either replace the players with better players so you can do the exact same thing but at a higher level, or you replace the manager. Leeds didn't have the finances, and he said that pretty clearly, to replace the playing squad, so they replaced the manager.
Yeah.
And then they replaced the players anyway. They brought in 9 players, which is essentially replacing a squad. That's a huge amount of players to bring in an off-season. So why not stick with that manager in the first place and give him those players and see what happens? There's an argument whether all the players are better, but I think they're getting there. So it's for Leeds to do that. And again, there's a great comment by Jim Hem in the comments put that there. The board have recruited players to play a certain system, and that they don't seem that they can play that system. And that might get the manager sacked. And it might be the board's actual actions that lead to a manager losing his job. But I think the Leeds board will stick with Marsh. Now, I'll caveat that real quick. I want Jesse Marsh to be a success. I really like the guy, and I want him to be a success at Leeds. I don't want him to fail. I'm not having a go with him. I really want him to do well. But I think Leeds will stick with him because Leeds have committed to a 3-year contract.
Yeah,
with him.
I think so.
After having 1-year deals, Leeds are very carefully managing their finances, and that is as obvious as hell. 0 debt currently, the lowest wage bill in the league. 0 net spend, or plus 1 million actually, money in the bank. On net spend. There's a very clear, that's not an accident or a coincidence. There's a very clear, deliberate action there to make sure the finances are managed. Paying off a manager for the next 3 years who's no longer at your club and going into this cycle of constantly replacing. I think Jesse might find himself in a position where he's the transitional manager, where he's the guy they bring in to replace the hero, but doesn't get the break because nobody wants the hero to be gone. They all want him back. Sad reality is there is no version of this in any reality where Marcelo Bielsa comes back in as the Leeds manager. It just doesn't happen.
No.
So, and I put a tweet out the other day, and I was one of the guys that follows my channel pretty regularly. Richard said, please tell me you're not jumping on the bandwagon here with Jesse Marsh. I said, no. The tweet was, for everyone that wants Jesse Marsh sacked, a large majority of them just want Marcelo Bielsa back. But knowing that that's never going to happen, do you still want him sacked? And if so, who'd you replace?
Marcelo Bielsa ball, which is so rare. You're just never going to find that ball again. His
disciples don't even play that. If they play a version of his system, but it's more defensive, the Corberan does it, Simone does it. There's loads of them. Pochettino does it as well. It's elements of it, but they're more cautious.
Even if you brought in Pep Guardiola to this side, and this brings me back to, I'm going full circle. I just don't know if the squad, when I look at the other squads, everybody's got a couple of ballers. Everybody, you know what I mean? Like we're relying on Sinisterra to be the X factor, which is a lot for him. And, I don't know. I can't look at our squad and say, oh, our squad is miles above some of these other teams. Even Crystal Palace. I mean, it looked like Eze, Elise, Azaha. Those are some strong players. You get those kids clicking. That's a decent, top, attacking 3 or 4. So I just don't know. Again, I don't know what manager can come in here and get results right away. So I don't know what the answer is, what the solution is.
We put ourselves in. Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, we put ourselves in a really difficult position with the way that we've built the squad. And I understand that we're trying to do something which is a bit different. We've talked about the Leicester model, and we kind of exercised that to a certain extent this summer when we offloaded our sort of 2 top players, which is not something that Leicester does. They usually go one at a time, but I understand we needed the funds and both players wanted to go. So that's neither here nor there. But we've done something interesting with the way that we're recruiting almost this B team with the under 21s, that we focus so much on getting in all of this really top talent at the 17, 18, 19-year-old range. And now we've, last season, obviously with the U23s, they were picked bare every week to make up for the lack of first team and ended up going down. Totally didn't deserve it. Those players are far better than being relegated from the PL2 Division 1, but that was the reality of the entire system from top to bottom in terms of the squad. So the squad and the reserve squad. So that was just what happened. We now have a team full of U21s that are so far too good for the PL2 Division 2. It's ridiculous how good they are. If you look at the statistics and everything else, how many, like plus 17 or something goal difference right now, something like that.
Argument to be made, Michael, to say they're better than some of the championship teams. They beat Sunderland, who had 9 first team players in that team.
Right, exactly. So, we have a team now. It's certainly at least in the midfield and attacking areas down there. I think we still got some left back problems, and question marks still over Klaassen. But I mean, he's developing. He's young. Not all young goalkeepers are going to be Melier. But we have players that are far too good for that system, but are yet also, when we look at someone like Somerville, for example, struggling to make the step up. Gelhardt has had moments, but he's also had times where he's struggled to make an impact. Are the other players in the U21s in the same position as that? Are they far too good to be in the 21s, not quite good enough to be in the Premier League, and they haven't been sent out on loan to get that senior team development that they need. So, I can't help but feel that there's been some pretty significant board level mismanagement of our squad, both in terms of the under 21 squad and the senior squad and the interplay between those two. We've built for the future, I think, really well, at least in a number of key areas, midfield and forwards. We've built for the future really, really well. But are we stunting their growth now? Are we shooting ourselves in the foot by not giving them the development that they need, the type of development that they need? And then the other question I got to ask is the system that we're using right now the right system to develop them as well?
The two great points there. They should be going out on loan is the answer. That's why the loan is there. They should be going out on loan to get that experience. PL2 is ridiculous. And I feel sorry for them as well, because everyone's saying these guys are on fire. They should call up the first team. They're playing in the second division of the under 21s, not the top division, second division. So the opponents aren't as good, but the Papa John's trophy, which I have a massive problem being able to say that name. I spent half of last week saying Japa John's. The Papa John's trophy showed that these guys are at a minimum League One level.
Yeah.
Against Sunderland, you could argue they're a lower half championship level, which is good. My concern is that we're building a youth team to replace our team when we're in a championship, when we sell all our players. But the problem with that is these players are so good, they'll all get snapped up as well. Like if we were to get relegated, you could see your top players, and I mean the likes of Rocket, Adams, Aronson, Sinisterra, Bamford, Koch, Melier, Christensen, gone. Stroke, gone. Gallagher, gone. And I think the likes of the rest of them will go as well. I think the top, the likes of the likes of what's his name? Not Mateo Joseph. I think we'll hang on to him, but I think that Sonny Perkins, I think, would go as well. So there's a thing. These are good players. They're capped at their national teams underage to a high level underage. Like you're under 21 for England. There's Leeds players in that side now, which means other lower half championship clubs are looking at these. And if you look at Southampton as a model, they took Levia on loan from Man City, and they put him straight into their starting 11. They didn't wait, and he looks every bit the Premier League player. Darko JB competed with him for the same position last year, played in midfield for the Man City under-23s last season. And we have JB got on the bench at the weekend. It's the closest he's got to the first team. So there's this piece around. Some teams are not afraid to go, look, it's going to take a couple of weeks to get used to this. Let's do it early in the season and get used to it, and let's get it out of the way. Because he looked like a smashing player against us when Southampton played us. But we don't seem to be brave enough to go, let's give them a run of games and see how they get. I'm not one of these people that every time something goes bad goes, play the kids, because the kids more often than not have turned out to be massively disappointing. Yeah. I remember a period of time where there was a certain group of Leeds fans cheering for Dom Polion to be the number one striker because he was the next big thing. And he's playing amateur football now. Never got past, I think AFC Wimbledon was his peak in League Two. So they don't always come true. Huh?
Chris Dawson, or future midfield dynamo.
Chris Dawson, oh God, he was going to be the next fucking John Giles. He was going to be gifted, but that didn't happen. Like it's compared to the level that they're playing at, and there's always there'll always be one or two that'll break through, but it's if they're as good as we think they are, they should be playing, because there's enough people in the first team that have made enough mistakes now at this point and have vanished in games enough that replacements need to be made. I don't know if Jack Harrison's been affected by not getting into the England team, because his form has absolutely tanked since the squad was announced. Do you replace him with one of the kids now? I don't know.
Well, I think they're gonna boat race the PL2, and there's a lot of players that are kind of in this purgatory, and that's some pretty damning stuff, Michael. I mean, and I don't think you're wrong with any of that, but I think, I mean, I don't know. It's just disappointing, and we went over this over the summer that there wasn't more investment made, and it's tough to sign all these players, and have them all be a fit, because there's so many different working parts to it. But it just looks like we've left ourselves a couple of players short on the main roster to really get this thing clicking. I want to just get a couple more minutes in. So Arsenal at home. I want your thoughts on that game. Leicester, Fulham, and Liverpool. How many points do we get? Let's go with Michael.
We have to get 4. out of the next 4 for sure. I think there's comments about that in
Who
our
do we
comments
who do we
here, and
beat?
Jared said it as well. We have to get 4 from 4. Can we? Yeah, I mean, I think we can. Leicester Leicester have had one good match all season, but to be fair, so have we. So that's a toss up, right? It's a toss up. And we're away for that one. Is that right? That was away. So yeah, difficult to say. Possibly a draw there. I would hope that we could win at home against Fulham. But they've been doing well. That they don't have, Mitrovic, right? He's injured still. So as far as I know, and I think he'll be out for a while. So, he was really the reason, I think, why they find themselves so far up the table. His start to the season was phenomenal. So will they be a bit different without him? Yeah, I think they probably will be, and I certainly hope they will be when we play them. I don't expect to get anything out of Liverpool or Arsenal. Arsenal are just far too good right now. They look like the only team that could even remotely come close to challenging Man City. Although, mind you, I don't think by the end of the season that will be the case. I think City will still win quite easily, but they look like the only team that's quite capable. Liverpool's an interesting one because they're really, really struggling right now. But they tend to raise their game when they play us.
At Anfield, it's so hard
that's
to get results.
Yeah, they still haven't lost at Anfield, I think, right? So for in a very long time. So that's one where could we get a shock result? If we're going to get any shock results, could we get maybe a point out of a game with Liverpool? Possibly. And if we do, that would be incredible. And I think it would go a long way to maybe easing some of the pressure on Jesse Marsch right now. But I certainly wouldn't go in expecting that. So for me, I think we probably can get 4 points out of the next 4. I think it's going to be the Leicester and Fulham games. And not only do I think we can, because we can, I think we have to. Or else, we're going to be in a world of hurt. Jesse Marsch in particular is going to be in a world of hurt.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Really, for me, it just depends. We're saying, will the board actually sack him? We're just talking about that. And for me, I mean, Radrizzani, I don't know what's going on with his business right now, but obviously he's just sold his 11 Sports to DAZN. I don't know what's going on with his own personal wealth situation at the moment, but obviously he's making business moves, significant business moves right now. And I think he's got a lot of his net worth tied up in Leeds United. How twitchy is he going to get with it on the line, and seeing how he almost lost a lot last season? How twitchy is he going to get?
I think if they wind up with like 1 or 2 points, I think they do pull the trigger sooner rather than later. These, but I don't know who comes in. And it's a tough run of fixtures, but he's got and this is the first time that Jesse's been on the hot seat since he's been here.
Yeah.
He came in, it was kind of like, save us. He got 12 games. Good luck. And now it's like, okay, you had your preseason, your summer. We need to start seeing results. And it's the risk of going down that's so heavy on these, that will start to pile up on these games. So Jesse before really wasn't at risk of losing his job.
Yeah.
If they went down, he probably would have been offered to stay. And, he also could have been like, well, I had 12 games. I tried to the best I could, wasn't my players. He had a lot of excuses last season. This is he doesn't have a lot of excuses here. And, we'll see. I'm going to go with 6 because I'm going to lead with my heart rather than my head. But obviously,
Mystic American.
I was just going to say, you haven't suffered enough, Alex. You haven't been a Leeds fan long enough to really know.
I said in the first 2 games, he's got to get 2 points or less against the first 2 games after this break. Will be, I said, squeaky bum time, and it is. It started. we're here because knowing Arsenal, knowing Liverpool were coming up, and knowing Leicester wasn't this bad. But I mean, head says we have a good home record. We'll probably lose Arsenal because of their form. We'll hopefully get a result at Leicester, and we're going to win Fulham because of, again, we're hosting. And ER, I think we're undefeated so far this season. And I think the players like to play at Ellen Road. I think these new players like to play in front of the fans. And then Liverpool, you have to write off almost as much as Arsenal because Liverpool is at Anfield. It's hard to the refs, honestly, I mean, they're bad. They've been bad. This season's been hard. Don't want to use those as an excuse, but they'll be really bad at Anfield.
I'm sure they will be.
I mean, Van Dijk is, I guess, undefeated at that down the Leeds Liverpool canal there. So yeah, Gier, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen over the next 4?
If I'm going with my head, I think we pick up 4 points from those games. But then you look what's afterwards. You got Bournemouth straight after Liverpool, and the Leicester, Fulham, and Liverpool games are in 6 days. 3 games in 6 days. You've got a real chance to build some momentum there as well. If you can get a win against Leicester, push on to Fulham at home, and ironically, between the Liverpool and the Arsenal games, the one that I think we might nick a point from is us at home to Arsenal, because I think we've been strong enough, and Ellen Road's a tight pitch, tight stadium. It's not as fancy as the Emirates. They might be a bit more uncomfortable. All these fancy, expensive footballers might not like it in Ellen Road. It's ranked in the top 3 stadiums players hate going to. So if we're going to nick a point off anybody at Ellen Road, and again, Arsenal won't employ a low block. They'll come at us, and that will hopefully leave some space for us as well. But I think, hard speaking, I'd like 6 points, because I think if we do get 4 points, we're pretty much on the same points per game tally that we're on right now. We end up with 12 points from 11 games. But I just, to try and make it a bit more positive as well, you need to get just under 2 points per game to be guaranteed safety in the Premier League, right? That's a big one. We have a game in hand, and that game in hand is over Nottingham Forest. So it's not an unwinnable game. It's a very winnable game, which would put us on 12 points currently, which would have us 8 in the table. I think it's a different conversation then. I think if we're sitting at 8 in the table, top 10, we're not worried about this. Leeds had always said that the goal this year was to consolidate 10th and 14th, between 10th and 14th in the table, maybe to consolidate again next year in that 10th to 14th bracket, but slightly higher up it, and then push for Europe. So right now we're bang on 14th. And we're averaging points per game compared to other teams that will finish us up in and around then. But we need to do more. And I don't think we need to go into Christmas or into the World Cup break nervous and looking over our shoulder. And I think that's why the next set of games are more important than anything than either sacking Marsh or bringing in more players over January. I think it's just important that we just calms everyone down a little bit, because again, 3 points. If we played Nottingham Forest a couple of weeks ago and got the 3 points in that game, as I said, we're sitting 8th in the table. We're not talking about this. No one's talking about the manager getting sacked. We're not talking about relegation. We're, top 10. So I think that conversation could change very quickly. Whatever about Liverpool and Arsenal, I just don't want us to get thumped by those 2 teams. I think if we come out of there with, moral victories, if you want to call it that, we played well, but got picked off by a free kick or something, like, fair enough, we can take that. But then you have to go and beat Leicester and Fulham for me. Mitrovic should be back for that's fantastic.
I sent this around the world. This was great, Michael. Great meme. I just want to close on a high note, having a good laugh.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm gonna dream tonight of Joffy scoring the winner at ER for us to upset the Gooners, as they say.
Someone has to beat them.
Someone's got to beat them. Yeah, someone's got to beat them. And hey, hopefully it's our day. Ellen Road turns into a fortress again. Happy days are here again, and we continue to kick on this season, because I'll tell you what, there's nothing better than beating some of these top sides. Chelsea was a great day. Chelsea was just a fantastic day.
It was great.
You love to see some of these bigger clubs in the mud. So I give my thanks to Michael. Michael, you can see him on Twitter. You might get a direct message, some of these memes and more. Maynard M is his Twitter handle, aka Leeds Faithful. Gier Lynch, Leeds United The View. You can find him on Twitter as well as Instagram, and Leeds United The View is the YouTube channel. I bid everybody a good night, and I will see everybody later. I might do a watch along at some point. I hope maybe this weekend.
That's a brave decision.
I know, right? I know, right? I don't know. I don't know. I kind of like them. I actually listen to, sometimes I listen to some watch alongs and mute the TV and try to sync it up, because a lot of times the broadcasters are so in favor, especially of the big sides, it's impossible to listen to.
Yeah.
I mean, they would call Bielsa naive so many different times. It was like, I can't listen to this.
Yeah.
Garbage.
They've never accomplished anything in their careers calling a manager who has naive. The irony.
Yeah.
I'm
All
going to
right,
print
boys.
the Jesse Marsh tactics thing, and I'm going to spend the weekend coloring that in my coloring pencils. That's my plan. That's what I'm going to do.
I sent you the link where it comes from, so
I want to print that.
it looks like it's legit.
Thanks everybody for joining us. Don't
guys.
forget to like, comment,
Night.
subscribe, and thank you everyone. Talk soon. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
See you guys.